නමෝ තස්ස භගවතෝ අරහතෝ සම්මා සම්බුද්දස්ස නමෝ තස්ස භගවතෝ අරහතෝ සම්මා සම්බුද්දස්ස නමෝ තස්ස භගවතෝ අරහතෝ සම්මා සම්බුද්දස්ස. May my homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Extremely One, Buddham Dhammam Sangham Namassami. May my homage to the Dhamma and the Sangha. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. I would like to welcome all of the Dhamma friends for today's Dhamma talk in the Sathi TV channel. In this Dhamma channel, we like to share our Supreme Buddha's great teachings to you all. So today we are beginning a series of Dhamma talk in English. To have this kind of Dhamma session, we thought of conducting this kind of Sutra discussion series. That is because at present day world we can see a trending and we can see a potential of so many people are trying to come to the Buddhism and understand Buddhist principles and practice the principles, and ultimately they all try to find a peaceful mental state. When we go through the teachings of the Buddha, all that kind of expectations we can clearly fulfill with the teachings of the Buddha. If you need to find physical comfort, physical wealth, of course there are teachings Buddha addressing about these factors. And also if you try to find mental peace, mental happiness, of course there are some ways and means of achieving those goals. And if you are truly wise and if you really want to understand the terrible, dangerous nature of the samsara, and if you really want to get through from the samsara, even for that also you can utilize Buddhist principles and Buddha's teachings. But to do each and every that kind of thing, it is very much important to understand the Buddhist Dhamma well. Without understanding the Dhamma well, you cannot get any one of these objects. So that is why we decided and we have planned to conduct this kind of Sutra Desana, Sutra discourses from the Sathi TV Dhamma channel. So this is the first step. And today we are going to discuss a very beautiful sutra. It is in the Pali Canon, and in that sutra, while going through, we can understand how to become a true Buddhist, how to become a real Buddhist. You know, there are in the world so many professions, so many aspects are there. You know, people are belongs to so many races, so many religions, so many ethnic groups, so on. And similarly, the Buddhist people also can say proudly that, you know, we are Buddhist, we are Buddhist. But you know, by just saying, by just thinking as Buddhist, we cannot become Buddhist. If we do not follow the true teachings, true practicing, and if we are not getting true results, we cannot become real Buddhist. So though one practices these, you know, basic principles and practices, and one get results even without the name of the Buddhist, he is the one who is following the real path of the Dhamma. He is the true Buddhist. So by going through this sutra, we can understand these scenarios beautifully. So before much ado, let's go to the sutra. So, this sutra is from Anguttara Nikaya. So, before we begin, if you take a brief summary of the Pali Canon. In the Pali Canon, dear Dhamma friends, there are 5 books are there. First one is called Digha Nikaya. Digha Nikaya means most of the sutras, most of the discourses are very long, since it has named as Digha Nikaya. And the second one, second chapter is known as Majjhima Nikaya. Majjhima Nikaya means it has quite middle length discourses. So, that is why the second chapter is known as Majjhima Nikaya, and third chapter is known as Sangyutta Nikaya. Sangyutta Nikaya means there are combined teachings, some 2 principles combined together and presents the idea. So, that is why the third chapter is known as Sangyutta Nikaya, and fourth chapter is known as Anguttara Nikaya. That means sutra categorized in a sequential order, first chapter, second chapter, third chapter, like that. In the first chapter you can see the Buddha's discourses with one factor. Buddha imperates particular one factor in the first chapter. In the second, Buddha imperates 2 factors. For example, in the second chapter, one of the sutta said, what is the path of Nibbana, and Buddha explained the path of Nibbana in 2 ways, Samatha and Vipassana. That is why likewise there are that is how chapter number 2 unfolds. Similarly, third chapter and likewise up to 11th chapter going on in this Anguttara Nikaya, numerical discourses. So, this particular sutta is from the Anguttara Nikaya. And the fifth one is Khuddaka Nikaya. Khuddaka Nikaya means minor teachings of the Buddha. If some minor facts, simple facts, when Buddha found, and Buddha preaches sutras about these matters. So, this particular sector is known as Khuddaka Nikaya, or the minor chapters. Likewise, there are 5 basic chapters, basic sections of the Buddhist Pali Canon. And today the sutra we are going to discuss is from the Anguttara Nikaya, numbered discourses, sector number 3, chapter number 82. The sutra name was Gadraba Sutta. Gadraba means it's a kind of an animal named a mule. A mule means, dear Dhamma friends, it's kind of an animal born from the crossing of 2 breeds, horse and donkeys. A mule is an animal, with compared to horses and donkeys, very less useful. That means he is having a less amount of instinct, since that we cannot utilize that particular animal for the human requirements. Mostly horses and cows and other animals we can use for our, as humans, for our day to day lives, but this particular animal we cannot utilize, we cannot use, since it has as I said, it has less amount of instinct, intelligence and things so on. So, the Buddha begins with this sutra in a beautiful way. So, if we go to the sutra, it says, Setapi bhikkave gadrabo gogana pittito anubaddo hoti. The Buddha said, suppose, dear monks, a donkey followed behind a herd of cattle. So, this particular mule or a donkey is following the herd of cattle, and he is thinking that ahampi dhammoti. This particular mule he was thinking that I too am a cow, I too am a cow. By thinking in that way, he just following the herd of cattle. Tassana tadiso vanno hoti seyatapi gunnam. But that particular donkey or the mule, it doesn't have the color of the color of the cow. Normally a mule's or the donkey's color with compared to the cattle's color, cow's color, it's little bit different, but still that donkey or a mule thinking that I too am a cow, I too am a cow. And further Buddha said, na tadisam saro hoti setapi gunno. That particular mule doesn't have the sound or the voice of the cow. The moving of the moving mean the sound of the cow, and it is very different than that of the mule's sound, but that particular mule is still thinking that I too am a cow, I too am a cow. And also it said, na tadisam padam hoti setapi gunnam. If you observe the footsteps, the size of the foot, sizes of the hoof, those are also not matching with the cows, but still that mule is thinking I too am a cow, I too am a cow. By giving that simile, Buddha approached to the Bhikkhu Sangha or the community of Sangha, because it is very beautiful to see that Buddha's practical approach of the bhikkhus. When people are coming to question, ask Dhamma from the Buddha, Buddha sees with his supernormal powers, his mind temperaments and abilities, composition, disposition of the minds, and accordingly Buddha preaches the Dhamma. So thereby, before going to explain intricate Dhamma factors or difficult, subtle, confusing Dhamma factors, Buddha uses beautiful similes. And the Buddha said in some sutras, if you are wise enough to understand the similes, then by comparing similes with the Dhamma factors, you can easily understand the Dhamma too. So that's why Buddha giving similes. So initially, according to that, Buddha has given these beautiful simile. And then Buddha came to the Bhikkhu Sangha and Buddha said, eva me vahanko bhikkave ide kaccho bhikkhu bhikkhu sangam pittito anubaddho hoti. In the same manner, there are some monks, by wearing this kind of discolored robe and going behind the community of Sangha, by saying ahampi bhikkhu, by saying I too am a monk, I too am a monk. So these particular monks, nowadays we can experience, we can witness, we can see all over the world. As I said, there is a potential growth in Buddhism, and so many people are attracted to Buddhism, and also we can see lots of people wearing robes, and they declare that they too monk like that. But this is very good, important point, that to identify whether he is a real monk or a fake monk. That is a good measurement Buddha has given here. So Buddha said further, tassa na tadiso chando hoti adisila sikka samadhane setapi anyesam bhikkунam. It means those bhikkhus, though they declared, though they said that I too am a monk, I too am a monk, they don't have the same enthusiasm, same desire like that of the other proper bhikkhus, quality true bhikkhus, for undertaking the training of higher ethics. That means they don't have the interest towards adi sila sikka samadhane. Here it's very beautiful and very subtle thing. Adi sila sikka samadhane, they don't have chanda. Tassa na tadiso chando hoti adi sila sikka samadhane. Though they declared as bhikkhus, though they exaggerate as bhikkhus, in their mind they don't have chanda or the interest, desire, enthusiasm towards adi sila sikha samadhana. Mean adi mean here higher, Sila mean morality, Sikka mean training, higher morality training. To have the kind of higher morality training, they don't have any desire. So, here very important thing, dear Dhamma friends, here Buddha used the word chanda. Chanda mean, you know, it's a defilement. Chanda mean desire, thirst, craving, we can use that. In most of other suttas, Buddha asks us to eradicate. We have to be deliverance from the tanha. But here the Buddha said, as a bhikkhu, we have to develop this chanda towards Adi Sila Sikka Samadhana, mean higher moral training. So, when one comes to this kind of points, people may get confused. Why? In some sutras Buddha said we have to eradicate chanda, but here the Buddha said we have to develop chanda. So, same word, two different meaning in two sutras. So, that is the nature of Buddhism. Like when we go through the sutta, we have to be very careful. Then I have found like one non-Buddhist is complaining about Buddhism. Why? Because Buddha is under Four Noble Truths. Buddha said about first, and under first truth he talks about suffering, and the second truth he talked the causes for suffering is the chanda or the trusna or the craving, and the third he talks about the cessation of suffering, and fourth he talks about the path leading to the cessation of suffering and to achieve the nibbana. So, then he asked, to achieve nibbana, one kind of person has to have the chanda, desire, willingness, likeness. Then he complained that, so then he has the tanha. Then he said that the Buddhist Four Noble Truth is bit contradictory, because Buddha asking us to eradicate chanda, but without having chanda we cannot achieve the nibbana. To achieve the nibbana we should have some kind of chanda. No? So, he just contradicted. You know, people who are having the surface knowledge of Buddhism, they begin to see that it's a true thing, but that is why Buddhism is so subtle. The outer appearance is very less, the inner content is very difficult to understand. That is why the Buddha, you know, uses similar terms in similar sutras, different sutras. That means when you understand the meaning of chanda in one sutra, that is applicable only to that sutra, but when we come to another sutra, the same term might be different meanings there. So, this is happening here. So, though we need to eradicate chanda, but of course to develop sila samadhi prajna, to develop higher level of morality, higher level of mental samadhi, higher level of wisdom, intuitive knowledge, of course we must have the chanda. So, Buddha said this chanda is not a defilement. It said in commentaries further explains that kattu kammita chanda, kattu kammita kusala. That means to do something wholesome, we must have some kind of desire, enthusiasm, chanda. That is not an unwholesome deed. So, if I explain you to understand in simple languages, like suppose we need to clear a jungle. So, ancient time people use axes, you know, axe, it has made out of wood fixed with metal, you know, metal piece of knife or something like that, and thereby by using axe we can eradicate the jungle. So, jungle is mostly made out of wood, and this particular axe also made out of wood. By using wood we destroy the wood. So, similarly by using chanda we remove the chanda. It is in one of the sutta Buddha beautifully explained, chanda nissa chandam pahatabba. Because of desire to achieve enlightenment we eradicate the desire. So, That is why we have to be very careful when we go through the teachings. So, here the Buddha said we have to, as bhikkhus, we must have the chanda, higher level of enthusiasm towards adi sila sikka samadhana. Normally Buddha said to follow morality, but here the Buddha especially imperatively describe adi sila sikka samadhana. Adi mean higher, sila mean morality, sikka mean training. So, at the end of the sermon I will explain you what is adi sila sikka samadhana, or what is higher moral training. But these particular monks, though they have wear the robes, though they are wearing robes, they do not have that interest to follow higher moral precepts. And secondly, he said, na tadiso chando hoti adichitta sikka samadhane. Also, they doesn't have any enthusiasm or the chanda towards adichitta sikka samadhane. Here the adi mean higher, chitta mean mental, samadhane, sikka samadhane mean, sikka mean training. To develop higher mental training, they do not have any interest. Setapi anye sam bhikkhuna, like that of the other proper monks, quality monks. And here normally in other sutras it talks about samadhi, but here it talks about adi chitta sikka samadhi. That means higher level of mental training. And thirdly it says, na tadiso chando hoti adi panya sikka samadhane setapi anyesam bhikkhuna. This particular monk doesn't have any chanda or the interest towards adi panya sikka samadhane. Here the adi mean higher, panya mean wisdom, sikka mean training. To develop higher level of wisdom, they do not have any interest like that of the other proper monks. But still this monk, he behave like this. So, bhikkhus sangha samaya pittito anubaddho hoti, still they follow behind the mendicant sangha thinking. Though those particular monks do not have any interest towards the development of adi sila sikka samadhana, higher moral training, adi chitta sikka samadhana, higher mental development, and they do not have any interest towards adi panya sikka samadhana, mean higher level of wisdom training development, but still they following the community of sangha. So, at the end Buddha compared, Buddha make no differences between the animals, the mule and this particular monks. No differences between these monks and of mules, because as I talked, though the mules follow the herd of cattle, herd of cows, it cannot become a cow. It cannot become it doesn't belong to the herd of cattle, because it doesn't have the required qualities to become a cow. Similarly, though the monks wearing robes and they proudly they following the community of sangha and they live within the community of sangha, but still they cannot claim, they cannot gain the status of a bhikkhu. The status of a bhikkhu is coming only when we have the true desire to achieve higher moral training and higher mental training and also higher wisdom training. That means we should have the interest, enthusiasm to practice more precepts, more sila and more samadhi and more prajna. Then let us talk about why here Buddha mostly encourage us to think about this higher level of sila and samadhi prajna. The other sutras is talk about sila samadhi prajna. That is because the sila which talked by the Buddha is very special. It is not like the other teachings, and the samadhi which talk about the other teachings, it's lots of differ from the Buddhism, and the wisdom which talk by the Buddha is different than that of the other teachings. So that's why we have to be very careful. When you see the other teachings, then you can see the moral teachings. Morality you have to maintain in other spectrums also, other doctrines also. And you know, samadhi, the maximum level of samadhi, there are 8 stages of samadhi. You know, form jhana mean, rupa jhana mean, you know, the including the first, second jhana and third, fourth, and all basic 4 jhanas known as form jhanas, rupa jhana, form jhana. And beyond that, arupa jhana, that means formless jhana, namely, you know, infinite space, akasananchayatane, infinite consciousness, viññānañcāyatanaya. Akinchanyayatane mean, you know, it's a level of perception, it's subtle level of perception. Akinchanyayatane and nivasanya nasanyayatane, those are the, you know, very higher level of samadhi, and those can be achieved even not only from this Buddhism, even away from Buddhism. People have achieved those jhanas, but still they are not coming under jhana, samma samadhi. The Buddha also talking about jhana, but little bit different. So then we have to understand what is the difference between those jhanas and this the Buddha talking about jhanas. We have to clearly identify the difference between two jhanas. So that's where the, you know, people in nowadays, they try to find mental happiness. So, you know, most people are coming towards Buddhism and other you know, spiritual teachings. That is because, you know, people who are having lots of wealth, physical wealth, you know, at the end, though we have lots of physical length, if today if we get something, then definitely we have the potential to lose it. That means, you know, when we meaning of birth is that one day definitely we have to die. When we begin to lose something, the first reason is to having something. That means if I have the tendency to lose something, that means I have something. If I haven't anything, then there is no tendency of losing anything. So that's why that is the nature of the physicality. All the natures have physical things have the nature of losing. That's why the Buddha, before becoming enlightened as the Buddha, he was a royal prince. He had a very luxurious life. He had all the physical comforts as a royal prince. He had a pretty young wife and all the comforts, sensual pleasures he had, but still he haven't found the complete satisfaction. That's why he left behind each and every comforts. But in nowadays, as normal human beings, we don't have that much of pleasure, that much of comfort like that of a royal prince, but still we are going beyond physicalities, physical materialistic gains, because we don't know the reality. But since the Prince Siddhartha was wise enough to understand, by having these materialistic gains, he had the knowledge that we cannot get the complete satisfaction. Why he thought like that? Because just imagine, maybe we have lots of money, and maybe we are from a wealthy rich family, but still, you know, we have to face the, you know, universal realities. Like, it doesn't matter you are from a wealthy or rich family or poor or, you know, ugly family. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you are from Buddhist spectrum, Buddhist doctrine, or any other religious teachings. It doesn't matter whether you are living in a country like Sri Lanka or Western or Oriental or anywhere. So every being has to face, you know, those who have born to this world, they have to definitely face the scenario of aging. We cannot avoid, and the tendency of the sicknesses we cannot avoid. At the end, the occurrence of the death. We cannot evade, we cannot escape. Whether we have lots of money or lots of materialistic wealth, it does not matter, we have to face those things. So, that is why if we need to a place where there is no aging, no sicknesses, no death, then for that the Buddha's teaching is for. When you understand Nibbana, Nibbana known as Amata, Amata means no death, it is kind of a eternal thing, eternal happiness, everlasting peace, everlasting happiness, that is known as Nibbana. So, the main purpose of Buddhism is to bring us the Nibbana. So, as normal human beings, if you want to have the jhanas, of course you can have jhanas. If you want to have the satisfying mental happiness, mental peace, of course there are methods you can have from the Buddhism, but those are not the main goals of Buddhism. So, that is why we need to understand the true meanings of Buddhism, otherwise we are just wasting our opportunity. Suppose when you have some kind of a materialistic wealth, and suppose you have won a lottery or something like that, you got a huge amount of money, and if you do not know how to invest it, how to manage it properly, what will happen? Suddenly it will be vanished, it will be losing without doing proper things. So, similarly we have the opportunity that we have received very rich, very wealthy, very breathtaking teachings to satisfy ourselves with the maximum satisfaction by understanding Dhamma, but still if we are not taking the necessary results out of the Dhamma, then we will be we are going to lose it, we are going to waste it. So, that is why we need to understand this Dhamma properly. So, I am going to explain you here why Buddha has mentioned about higher moral precepts and higher mental training and also higher wisdom training. Why Buddha asks us to, as monks, to develop our chanda towards this kind of sila samadhi prajna, or the moral, samadhi and wisdom. That is because in this Buddha's dispensation, especially we need to find a everlasting happiness, no. So, that happiness if we need to achieve, that peace if we need to achieve, we need to follow noble eightfold path. It begins with the right view. People have translated this samma ditti as right view, but the word right not gives you the proper meanings of samma ditti. So, samma ditti is the first step. So, there are two types of samma ditti, worldly conventional right view, conventional samma ditti, and also the ultimate samma ditti. You have to understand both of them, then only you have the right view. Then at the second, samma sankappa, that means right concepts or right thoughts. There are three aspects within it. One is called kama sankappa, mean the unwholesome side. With the opposite of that, we must practice nekkamma sankappa. We try to practice getting things away. Against the attachment, we try to practice detachment. That is why as Buddhists we need to practice dana, like dana kind of thing, giving. If we cannot remove our desire towards our physical materialistic things, then how can we detach from our mental bondages? So, that is why Buddhists practice dana. When first we should have the ability to get away things which are physically belongs to us, then only we can get away, we can get rid of our mental defilements. That is why we practice nekkamma, the third thoughts of deliverance, that is called nekkamma sankappa. and also the avyapada, the thoughts of metta, thoughts of loving kindness, and the avihimsa sankappa mean the thoughts of compassion, that like as Buddhist monks or a Buddhist laity, we must not harm others in any ways. As Buddhist, when we talk, we try to help others even by talking, even by thinking, even when we do any kind of thing. You have to very carefully think whether I am performing this kind of mental activities and verbal activities and also physical activities, whether it gives any harms to others. We have to carefully think. Those are known as right thoughts. In the second, that is comes under second step. And in the third step, samma ditti, samma sankappa, samma vacha, right speech. There are 4 things that has to be adopted. One is called musavada. We have to avoid from lying, and we have to avoid from divisive speech. When we talk with other friends, we have to be very careful about friends, because when we tell something from someone to someone, there may be struggles, there may be divisions. So we have to be very careful. We have to avoid completely the divisive speech. And thirdly, we should not talk harsh speaks, harsh words, slangs kind of things to hurt people. And fifth, especially idle talks, gossip, idle chatting, without having a intention, having a proper aim. We shouldn't talk about other things. Those are known as, there are 32 things. Idle chatting, the things that we talk, that we speak, has to have some kind of essence, some kind of value. Otherwise we shouldn't talk. Like since we have a mouth and since we have the ability to talk, we shouldn't talk. When we are talking, there has to be some essence. So that's called idle chatting. We have to avoid idle chatting. Those are those 4 factors known as samma vacha. And the fourth one, samma kammanta. Physically we have to adopt 3 basic principles. We have to avoid killing, and also we have to avoid taking others things which are not given. That means stealing, we have to avoid stealing, and also we have to be very careful. We have to be avoid sexual misconduct. It's a very important factor of the morality. So those are known as the samma kammanta, or the right activities. And the fifth one is called as samma ajiva. Samma ajiva means, as a bhikkhu, we shouldn't be cunning, and when we need some kind of things that we tell to people and we deceive the people, and we try to take our gains, materialistic gains, by deceiving people. That is not a right livelihood as a bhikkhu. And for the lay peoples also, when you are living in the world, you should select a proper profession, good profession. That profession has to be genuine. That means without harming others. You should earn justifiable money for you to maintain your life. That is called samma ajiva. Then samma vayama, 6th factor. Samma vayama means right effort, because in your mind, if there are some negative aspects, like unwholesome aspect in your mind, like hatred, jealousy, anger, craving, that kind of attachment, that kind of things brings you suffering, then you should have effort. You try to put much effort to avoid those kind of unwholesome mental scenarios, and you try to develop wholesome mental scenarios like kindness, compassion, altruistic joy, equanimity, such kind of good mental aspects you need to practice. You should have effort. That is called right effort. And that's where the 7th step comes, the mindfulness. This is very famous term in the Buddhist world. People are trying to practice mindfulness. So just imagine, you can come to the right mindfulness only after fulfilling those basic 6 steps. Without having those 6 steps, if you try to be mindful, practice mindful meditation, you cannot be success on that mindfulness meditation. That's where the Buddhist mindfulness is. That's why I said in the beginning, it's different from that of the other teachings. And when you fulfill those basic 7 steps, that's where you get the right concentration or the right samadhi. In that level you will get the jhanas, but in the other teachings you get the jhanas when you do meditation. When you do meditation retreats, people are attending 10 days meditation retreats and 15 days, 20 days, like that. There are so many meditation practices. When they do meditation like that, they will get the samadhi, maybe they can get the jhanas also, but when they are coming out from those retreats or sermons or the programs, they will lose their samadhi. That is because they don't have the basic 7 steps, basic 6 steps. But as Buddhist, we get the samadhi, we get the 7th step and 8th step by the support of 6 basic steps. That's why the Buddha said Sila Samadhi Prajna. That's why we as Buddhist monks, we must have the higher level of interest towards practicing moral precepts, practicing mental phenomena, mental development, and practicing higher level of wisdom. We must have desire. So it applicable not only for the monks, it applicable for also for the laity also. Though we have this kind of interest towards Sila Samadhi Prajna, then we proudly say that I am a Buddhist. Then there is no difference between that mule and a Buddhist. Those are so called Buddhist. So with that the time is passing, and I tried to explain you about these noble principles, basic principles. So it's very obvious fact that as monks, as laity, we must have interest, desire to follow at least 5 precepts, 10 precepts, 8 precepts. We should focus more on the precepts, and then we try to focus more on the development of samadhi. By hearing Dhamma, we should know about samadhi, and it called we have to select a particular suitable kammattahana. It's called subject of meditation. Then we have to try to develop our mind towards to a good samadhi. So that's a key thing as a Buddhist. And also we try to develop our wisdom in order to understand the realities. So without having that nature within us, though we think as that, we proudly say that we are Buddhist, but we cannot become Buddhist. So by keep them in your mind, you try to be a good Buddhist by having chanda, desire, enthusiasm towards to practicing higher level of moral and mental and wisdom training, and thereby as the Buddha said, this Dhamma is sandittikai. Sandittika mean, sang mean by yourself, dittika mean can be experienced, can be seen within this life. You can experience the ultimate happiness. So that is the nature of Dhamma. So the merits, the virtues that we have gained through this Dhamma discussion may well be a cause for you all to become enlightened in this way, in this Dhamma, within the Buddha's teaching. And with that, I would like to end today's Dhamma talk. Before ending, I would like to thank and share my merits, and I would like to wish all the blessings, especially to my teachers. I would like to remind their names, Venerable Maan Kadawala Sudassana Thero, and especially Venerable Maan Kadawala Nandaratana Thero and Venerable Kotmale Kumara Kassapa Thero. They are my teachers. May my teacher blessed with infinite triple noble gem blessings, and also may they cause these all merits to become enlightened sooner in a happy way. And also I would like to share all these merits to the all the celestial beings who are protecting you, this Dhamma, this community of Sangha, and all the Kalyana Mittas. May all the gods may receive these merits, and may they be able to live a happy life, and ultimately may they be able to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. And finally, I would like to blessing you with all those triple gem blessings, and with all those merits that we have gained through this Dhamma discussion, may be a reason, be a condition for you all to attain the mental peace and the physical peace, and finally the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Theruvan Saranai to everyone. Abhivadana silissa niccang vaddha pachayino chattaro dhamma vaddhanti ayuvanno sukhang balang ayu arogya sampatti sagga sampatti mevacha ato nibbana sampatti iminate samijjhatu.